Good afternoon, everybody. So this is the third in the series of 4 debates today that we're having for the class that all of these kids take, which is CHS Debate. It's a class that's offered through the University of Pittsburgh. If you're an underclassman and you're interested in it, you can get college credit for it. But we teach the fundamentals of debate. We do a lot of our own things, but we also have a lot of material that's given to us from the University of Pittsburgh. And one of the things that Pitt insists on is that once a year, every school that's involved in this program debate the same topic at least one time. And we get together as teachers in the CHS class, and we determine what that topic will be the year before. And so this year's overall debate topic for every school that's taking this, whether it's Bellwood or Central Catholic in Pittsburgh or any one of those schools from out there, the topic is social and mass media improve the quality of democratic decision making. And what we'll do is after the debates are over today, we're videotaping these. We're going to choose one exemplary debate and send that to the University of Pittsburgh. There, professors, debate students, and members of the debate team will watch those videos and choose one outstanding arguer from Bellwood. And they'll do the same thing for every other school that's involved in this, so that you end up with a group of maybe like 15 to 20 all-star arguers who then go to Pittsburgh at the beginning of May, the end of April, and we have kind of like a big all-star debate around this topic of social and mass media. But rather than debate social and mass media all day, what we do here is we try to come up with topics that touch on that idea. And so far today we've argued over whether information gathered through social media creates a well-informed society. Just last period we argued over whether news organizations are trustworthy. And then this takes that last debate just a step further. The topic that we're going to argue here is mass media has a responsibility to be completely honest. I believe, are you guys the pro side in this one? Okay, so we have pro side over here. They believe that mass media should be completely honest. And con over here, they believe that mass media should not be completely honest. If you've done this in your classes before, it's a typical public forum debate where we'll have a couple speakers from both sides speak. You'll have crossfires and a grand crossfire. We'll ask you at the end of this, what's your opinion? Who won the debate? So listen closely and we'll pull you guys at the end.
Hi, my name is Jared Tanio and I'm a senior here at Bellwood Annis. I would like to thank Mr. Naylor for setting these debates up, my partners for helping me out leading up to the debate, and all of you for listening. To begin, my partners and I believe that the mass media has the responsibility to be honest. We believe this for many reasons, but as a team we will be telling you why the mass media line is morally wrong, why people deserve the truth, how the mass media can build trust in Americans, and how people rely on the mass media every day. Personally, I will be telling you why the mass media line is morally wrong. My partner will then later focus on the other points I mentioned. The mass media line to the public is morally wrong because Americans deserve to know what is going on in our democracy. The mass media, withholding information from the people of the United States, takes away the ability for the people to make their own opinions on political issues. If the people do not know the full and accurate story, then they cannot make their own opinion. In a country that is all about free speech and democracy, I believe that this is immoral. Why should the mass media have the ability to take away U.S. citizens' decision-making process? Our opponents may try to say that the mass media is only trying to protect us, but I'd rather know what is going on in my country than be lied to about the issue. In fact, most Americans agree with me too. According to a poll done by CHS Research Institute, 85% of Americans think that the most important aspect in the mass media is the accuracy of their reports. Because of this, it is immoral to not give the people of the United States what they want. A dishonest mass media not only is immoral because it takes away the right to form a political opinion and goes against what the people want, but it is also immoral because it separates us as a country. If the mass media is lying and the people find out about it, we as citizens will develop a trust nobody attitude. Our opponents may say that the common citizen will never find out about the lies the mass media tells. However, I think Abraham Lincoln said it best when he said, You can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. Eventually, the people of the United States will find out about a lie the mass media told, and they will be infuriated. And they will most likely blame the government for hiding issues from them. This will then cause a larger divide between the citizens of the U.S. and the government than we already have. Therefore, the mass media line is immoral because it separates us as a country and turns the people against their political leaders. In conclusion, the mass media has a responsibility to be honest because it is immoral for them to lie to American citizens. It is immoral because it takes away the right for Americans to form a political opinion. It goes against what the people want, and a lying mass media will eventually divide us as a country. Soon, Abby will tell you why people deserve the truth, why the mass media can build trust in Americans, and how people can rely on the mass media every day. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paige Heater, and I would like to thank my opponents for being present and the fellow audience for listening to our debate. Thank you. Before we begin, let's make sure we're crystal clear on what being completely honest means. It means exposing every detail. This can become a problem. If we start saying that mass media has the responsibility to be completely honest, then we're saying that they have the responsibility to expose as much as they can about you. This can even mean personal information, such as what you or some other figure may do in your daily or their daily life, or whatever they may be allowed to expose. Simple details about your life could all of a sudden become a scoop in a newspaper article because some media company felt that they had to do it. We'll look at Franklin Roosevelt, for instance. While being a great president, Mr. Roosevelt was diagnosed with polio at age 39. This in turn caused paralysis of the waist down. But around 1921, newspapers had already printed the news event that Franklin Roosevelt had polio. Why did the media have to publish this? Why does it matter? Personal information is called personal information for a reason. It doesn't have to be blatantly put out there, nor does anybody deserve that. Mass media should not have to cover all this information. We are not saying that mass media should lie, but are rather conveying that mass media only has to give what's necessary, not giving unnecessary information. For example, during an event, you should disclose what happened at the event rather than wandering around from the main topic. Which brings me to my next point. Mass media is able to influence the public's perspective of a situation, especially since it's nationwide. We do not need to elaborate on every detail of a situation. Being too honest can, in some cases, be hurtful. For example, during times of crisis, the mass media introduces these problems to the nation to make us aware of these issues, but they need to consider what precisely they tell the public as to not cause a even bigger panic, rather than just putting it all out there for some of us to absorb. The information they disclose should be truthful, exact, and most of all relevant to the crisis or even at hand, to the event at hand. According to Recode, psychological research suggests that the brain is also predisposed to attend to negative information. When media content makes us angry, sad, or scared, we orient towards the disturbing story to make sure we know how to protect ourselves. It's the fight or flight response. The problem occurs when the threat is far removed from us, amplified by the media and out of our control, all of which can make us feel helpless or hopeless. If we were to put out information that would make citizens even more fearful than before, we could have even bigger consequences on our hands. And a final thing to consider, the reason mass media should only stick to the facts is because when you turn from reporting what actually happens to telling an exaggerated story, every little detail can be told from a skewed perspective, such as a story told from a liberal view or a story told from a conservative view. Media bias can impact the whole story. All of the details they give may very well have been influenced by what somebody wants to hear, especially if the media is coming from a source that has taken a side on a matter. By only saying what happened in an event, this lessens the risk of the true story becoming shrouded in opinions or any biased views. That is why you need to stick with the facts and what just happened. Nothing more, nothing less.
Do you believe that American citizens have the right to form their own opinion about what is going on in our democracy?
Yes.
So, you were saying about biased news sources and that they're bad, right?
Mhm.
So, if you're reading biased news sources, then that's going to automatically, you're not going to form your own opinion because you're reading the biased sources. So therefore, if they aren't completely honest and just give us the facts, then we're not going to be able to form our own opinion, and our democracy is just going to go down.
Well, by the last part, what you said there, I say that by us, when I stated being completely honest means exposing all the details, and what we're simply saying is that you would get all the information, you would understand what happened, but we're simply saying they don't have to include irrelevant information that would be information that did not have an impact on the situation or event, or information that wouldn't hinder your understanding if it was left out.
Okay, but so I disagree with your definition of honesty, because I don't think they have to report every single detail. They can choose what they want to report. So, if something's too gruesome to report, they don't have to report it, but they just have to be honest about what they do report.
I think that, like, we weren't defining the word honesty. Like, we considered the term completely honest to be different, because if you're honest, you're telling the truth, and to be completely honest, you'd be giving the full story, and by that, we're just saying mass media does not have to, like, disclose irrelevant information, such as, like, a color of a car or color of a person, like that.
Well, I mean, I think if they're completely honest about just little things like that, though, you're going to be able to, I mean, obviously you can only break it down so far, if you know what I mean, but if they're completely honest, you're still going to be able to form your own opinion. And not only that, but the American public wants the mass media they want them to be completely honest. So if that's what the people want, then why are they not honest?
I think sources, like I said before, I think you can be honest, but that's just telling the truth. Like, by not being completely honest, you're not bending the truth, or you're not actually being honest, you're just not giving, you're just not giving details that wouldn't help the story or wouldn't hinder the story.
But they're not going to, if you're completely honest, it's not going to take away from the story either, it's just going to add to it.
We just felt that because of those details were irrelevant, we just thought, why would they need to be put in there?
Well, what's irrelevant to one person may not be irrelevant to another, and therefore we should be able to form our own opinions about.
I would say so, but like, take for example, like a ship. If a ship sank off the coast, like in the ocean, if it's being reported, like, would the color of the boat really have to do with it sinking? That's what we would consider.
Maybe not to you, but it might matter to one of the other people in America. You know what I mean? Because everybody values different things.
I guess that's completely debatable. You were talking about accurate information, but does accurate information contain, like, irrelevant details, contain irrelevant information?
Like I said, it doesn't. It's hard to tell what's irrelevant, because what's irrelevant to somebody else may be different to somebody. So I think that the news should just report everything they can and then let the people decide whether it's irrelevant or not, and just make it as accurate as possible.
I guess that we were considering irrelevant to be information that actually had an impact on the situation, and if it didn't, then there would be no, like, opinion on it, because if it didn't affect what happened, then it's unimportant. Do you believe that things such as, like, personal information need to be, like, disclosed with the world?
I don't. That part confused me. I mean, I may have just misunderstood you, but I don't think the news would be reporting about what you do in your everyday life. I mean, unless it was necessary. But I just didn't understand that question, that point in your speech. But if it related to the news, then yeah, I think they should be able to report what they know to the public.
So you think if it should matter? Okay.
Hi, my name is Abby Linsman, and I'm a student here at Balladanus High School. Before I make my argument, I want to say a few thank yous. I would like to thank Paige and Josh for debating against us today, Mr. Naylor for providing the debate topic, and you, the audience, for listening to the debate. First, I would like to define a few key terms for you to understand this debate. Mass media is defined as the primary means of communication used to reach a vast majority of the general public and includes newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and the internet. Responsibility is a moral obligation to behave correctly toward or in respect of. And honesty means honorable in principles, intentions, and actions, or showing uprightness or fairness. Now, we can all agree that the mass media has lied to the public several times. There's no denying it. It is something that has been going on for decades, and as Jarrett has already said, it is morally wrong for the mass media to lie. My partners and I believe the affirmative that the mass media has a responsibility to be completely honest. I will be elaborating on the following points to support my argument. People deserve to know the truth, it helps build trust from the people, and people have nowhere else to go for information. First, people deserve to know the truth. The mass media wields immense powers of influence over society. Therefore, whenever it provides information to the people, the mass media should respect what the people want. It should not be withheld from those who support it. Whether it is good or bad, the truth is the truth. People will be able to handle it if they are willing enough to pay attention to what is happening in the world around them. This is what we want from the mass media, or at least what we should want. We expect journalists to maintain professional independence and objectivity. We expect news that is relevant, informative, proportionate, and engaging. We expect transparency. By popular opinion, the mass media should not lie to the public or make up partial truths about what is really happening. Second, it helps build trust from the people. This, as a result, makes the mass media a more credible source. As said by Frederick Douglass, the life of the nation is secure only while the nation is honest, truthful, and virtuous. I believe that this also holds true for mass media. The mass media is secure only while the mass media is honest, truthful, and virtuous. It makes sense. People are more likely to trust in something when it is honest and reliable. Theodore Roosevelt once commented on the mass media and journalism specifically. The power of the journalist is great, but he is neither respected nor admired for it unless it is used right. If the mass media wants to be supported, it needs to be trusted. Reporting false information affects the individual, and it also hurts the journalist. By not being honest, the mass media can receive a lot of negative attention from the public, in turn hurting its reputation. According to Gallup, a popular data source, only 32% of Americans say they have a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the mass media. In addition, only 14% of Republicans express trust, down from 32% last year. If you are a Trump supporter, you can probably link these ideas. You've probably seen the mass media negatively report about Trump, which causes you and others to become less likely to believe them further on down the road. This poses the need for a more honest mass media. Third, people have nowhere else to go for information. Think about the last time you wanted to learn the latest news. You probably turned on the internet, the TV, or might have read the newspaper. These are popular sources for finding information. We depend on the media for coverage on the events taking place around us and for information on important global events. If these sources are lying or providing only partial truths, where will we find the real truth? The types of mass media, which again include newspapers, magazines, radio, television, and the internet, are the largest source for information. Without these, I'm not sure what else is available for use. Now, our opponents may try to say that sometimes the truth can be dangerous. It could give people the wrong ideas when they hear about acts of violence or war. However, the mass media needs to think more about doing its job by being completely honest about information and stop worrying about how the people are going to respond to it. Not everyone can be protected because sooner or later they will probably hear the truth somewhere else. Yes, there might be people who could be offended by the truths reported by the mass media, but also, yes, many people are not engaged enough in the world around them to care or pay attention to the negativity. For those who care, it is only fair to provide them with the truth. In a blog post by Mallory Laird titled "Why It Is Important to Tell the Truth," she says, "It is important for journalists to tell the truth because the public depends on them. The public depends on journalists every day for information going on in their town as well as their country. If the public can't trust journalists to give them true news information, then who can they trust? It is the duty of journalists to take the time to gather true information before they report on a story. Once journalists start reporting on things that are not true, their credibility is lost." I think this excerpt accurately describes the argument we are trying to convey to you today. It is unfair to those viewers or listeners who support it to be fed lies or only partial truths. The mass media has the responsibility and obligation to be completely honest when it provides information for the people. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Joshua Swope. First of all, I would like to thank my opponents here for being such a great debate team to debate against us, and I'd like to thank my partner Paige here for debating with me today. So to begin, each person that works for a news or communication industry therefore represents that company with the news that they give. A reporter or an anchorman has always had the responsibility of providing facts on a situation or providing pertinent information that be necessary. According to a SIRS article by Amanda Bennett, media has much more frequently been a partisan pastime ever since the country was created, yet efforts to define and practice objectivity through the years quickly devolved into arguments about what objectivity meant. Ask 10 journalists what objectivity means and you'll get 10 different answers. Oxford Dictionary defines being honest as being free of deceit and untruthfulness, sincere. It's also used to persuade someone of the truth of something. As you've maybe heard, "I'm just being honest," is said after someone has seen that appears obviously hurt by a blunt or unedited comment. But this response always holds a double-edged sword. It hurts the person it's directed at, and it allows the sender to feel like a good person all in one comment, justifying their wrong behavior with just this phrase. Usually these honesty at all times, no matter what types, are angry and judgmental people who have been taught that they can play judge and jury with full permission by simply labeling their hatefulness as honesty. And many stand before them stunned and hurt, scratching their heads wondering what's wrong with them that they aren't receptive to this honesty stuff that's supposed to be so hard to come by. The social reality is that our lower, base, and private thoughts should be kept in a safe place, our own minds. People must learn that telling social white lies and therefore editing their ugly and unkind thoughts is a necessary component to our socialization. And as an added bonus, it keeps people from fighting each other. When you meet up with your friend you haven't seen in a year, you wouldn't immediately say, "You are 17 pounds heavier than you were last year." Make sure that the truth is the truth. Recognize that truth is often subjective. Each of us sees facts through a haze of beliefs, attitudes, and experiences. No single test can judge the worth or potential of another human being. There are some things that are better left unsaid. Aren't there things that you would rather have not been told? The news should be there to provide the truth that is true, but are they really there to provide stories that we don't need or care to know about? According to a SIRS article titled "Just the Facts, Please," the idea that biased news creates a well-rounded society is disproved through the general behavior of us humans. We tend to turn to what makes us feel comfortable and not what could actually educate us. People want news that reinforces their own opinions and beliefs, not the news that provides them with what really is the truth. Even if there's a story that talks about a president you like or a sports professional you like to watch, you don't want to hear about the things about their personal life that doesn't relate to their job because you don't want to change how you view them. You wouldn't want people judging you off the things you do when you believe nobody's watching. You have your reasons and it's none of their business. People make mistakes sometimes, but if it doesn't directly relate to what's going on or if it doesn't change anything, why do we care? According to an article by Mary McNaughton on Recode, our brains are programmed to pay attention to rapidly changing stimuli. This predilection, which was crucial to survival when survival was dependent on constantly monitoring the environment, makes it hard for us to ignore 140 character Twitter streams, television shows, social media updates from our friends and family, and even advertising. Once again, psychological research suggests that the brain is predisposed to attend to negative information. This problem occurs when the threat is far removed from us, amplified by the media and out of our control, all of which makes us feel helpless or hopeless. Too much information, particularly from a single or biased source, can distort our worldview.
So you keep saying that the mass media, like, explains every little detail in situations, but you don't really have enough time to explain the details, so I don't really see how the mass media still does that right now.
Well, I guess if they don't have like time to explain every little detail and be completely truthful, then maybe it's not really worth mentioning that detail.
Okay, so if they don't already, then why are we bringing it up?
What do you mean?
You're saying that we are explaining details, but I don't think that we are right now because we don't have time to.
Like, if you've ever seen news bring up a small detail that, may have changed your opinion a little bit, if you don't have time to explain the whole story behind that, or maybe everything else that was going on, then you can't just mention the bad information that you want to mention.
Okay, so if you say we can't add the small details, well, then if we're being honest, then I feel like the only thing we need to mention is facts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if small details are added, then what do you think is the problem?
Because the details that are usually added are irrelevant and don't really pertain to the situation.
So if they don't cause any harm, then what's the problem with it?
Because sometimes the irrelevant information can cause people that may not be, very well educated on the topic at hand to form biases and opinions just due to that one thing.
I feel like some small details you can't really form biases about. So do you like when people lie to you?
No.
So do you think you personally need to be protected from the truth?
I wouldn't say that I like being lied to, of course, but I don't need people to come and tell me their every thought about me. I don't need their full opinion. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, since this is mass media, I don't think they're using opinions because it's only facts they're reporting.
Well, there's always going to be opinions in the news because that's why there's different news, different news sites and news, like CNN, ABC, Fox News, the different types of liberal and conservative, there's different views. That's why opinions are always included with the news.
Do you think that opinions are important to include?
Yeah, I believe that opinions would be important to include, but if you're going to be, exposing your opinions on news, then you should also be providing the facts along with the situation.
So do you think it's honest if we include details that aren't really, have to do with the situation, they're just the views of the person reporting it?
I would say maybe sometimes those aren't necessary because, as again, they can have bias towards the topic, and they could be, trying to persuade other people of that when the purpose of the news is to provide the facts.
Yes. So you think that just stating the facts is honesty?
I think that just stating the facts would be the purpose of the news.
So you agree that the main purpose of mass media is to just tell the truth?
I would say that the purpose of media is to, yes, tell the truth, but just the truth. They don't need bits and pieces of information that might sway their opinion one way or another just because of what they believe.
Isn't that just supporting our side because you're saying it has a responsibility to be honest?
They have a responsibility to be honest to a degree.
What degree is that to? If you're saying just include the facts, I think that's honesty.
All right, we're going to move on to crossfire.
Okay, Josh, you were saying about bias. Could you just clear up what you were talking about? Do you think bias is a good or a bad thing?
When you're talking about the news, like, that's supposed to be providing the facts, I would say that bias is probably a bad thing.
So you think they should be completely honest and not have bias?
No, I'm saying that they should include only the information that's pertinent to the situation.
And be honest about it.
They should be honest to a degree, yes, but when you start providing information, like, say, about, something that a president, did years ago, how does that really pertain to?
Well, we're not saying
today?
that they need to report that. We're just saying that they shouldn't leave out, they shouldn't word it in a way that is going to sway Americans. The Americans should get the facts about the situation, and it should be just the facts, and they should be completely honest about those facts so the American can make their own opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also say that sometimes their own opinions are more enforced than just the facts in those things, and they're trying to get Americans to believe something just because of providing certain information or leaving out other information.
Would you agree, like, small details are facts that are included sometimes?
I mean, it's hard to tell sometimes, but yeah.
Yes?
I think that the details that have an impact or that actually affected the story or the situation should be included, but like I said before, we're not something that is unimportant, like that people would just pass over, like a detail such as the color of somebody's hair. Like, you shouldn't have to include that. That's mostly for the sake of, like, convenience, but details that did matter should be included. We're just saying that irrelevant details should not have to be included.
Yeah, we're agreeing with that point. We're just saying that the small details are still honest if they're added, like they should be.
So Josh, you said that the journalists represent the news companies, so shouldn't they be completely honest? Otherwise, the credibility of the news company declines.
Okay, well, if they're being completely honest, then aren't they going to have to reveal every single little detail about a situation?
No, just the ones that matter. They don't have to be able to say everything.
So then they
that
don't
should
have
say.
to. So then they shouldn't really have to be completely honest if they're not going to have to reveal every detail.
They still have to be honest.
We're not saying that they should lie. We're just saying that they don't have to reveal every single little detail.
Obviously, you're not going to be able to report every single detail because there's going to be detail that the human eye misses. But they should, to the best of their knowledge, they should make it as honest as they possibly can and unbiased as they possibly can,
And I
so that
agree
the
with that.
American public can make their own opinion. They're not going to be able to report every single little detail.
But if there's situations where reporting every little detail would be necessary to the story, then maybe, that detail shouldn't
Then
really
they
be
should.
mentioned.
Then they should if it's going to affect the story.
But
If it's going to
yeah, if
affect
it's
the
going to affect the
situation,
story.
if it's going to affect the situation, they should include it. But we're not saying they should include irrelevant details. We're saying they should just be completely honest and not hide things from the American citizens. And I have just a question for you. Do you feel our government should do what the people want?
Yeah.
And if the people want the news sources to be completely honest, why should we not do that?
Well, I mean, because people have the right to, the media has the right to say what they want.
Yeah, you would still get the truth of the story. You'd still get the story. You'd get everything that mattered. You would know what happened. But the main thing is you wouldn't get details that wouldn't be important.
But we're not saying that you should get details that aren't important. We're saying that they should be honest about the details that they do report and that affect the situation.
Yes.
They
As reiterated by Abby, the public has been lied to before by the mass media. As stated before, it is morally unjust to lie to the American people. Though they are giving alternate truths, it is still lying. Regardless of what our opponents call them, stretching the truth, alternate truths, it's still sugarcoating the fact that they are lying. Without trust, one cannot bring themselves to trust other people, leading to lack of respect for others. Without a truthful media source to rely on, where will the people go to get accurate information? Nowhere, because all the other media will follow suit with the fact that they don't have to give the complete facts, to be completely honest to the American people. If given the opportunity to extend upon the truth, then they would be able to expand the truth so that only giving what they consider necessary. But how can you determine what is necessary information? Our opponents said that it is irrelevant to include race or color of a person, but in fact, you need the information to be able to understand the situation and how it was resolved. As our opponent said, the journalists represent the company, so it makes sense to be honest, because if they aren't honest, it would lead to you actually listening to the information and not trust the journalists. As our opponents stated, the mass media is blunt, but it is the facts. By leaving out information, the media will be given negative attention and credibility is lost. We are only stating that the facts should be stated. Honesty and complete honesty are the same thing, but as long as it is honesty, then it is the facts, and they are responsible to report those small details.
Okay. Through our debate, you have heard our different viewpoints clash. The biggest thing is to focus on here is that we're saying that mass media doesn't have to include irrelevant details that don't have an impact on the situation. This is not lying. This is simply for the sake of convenience. We are definitely not saying that the mass media should lie or distort the truth in any way. If you are reading a news article about a car crash, would the color of the car really gain your attention, or would you pass over it? Why does including details like these matter? Does irrelevance to the situation really matter in an article? Do you want to hear details that have nothing to do with what happened? This is what we mean. You will get the whole truth of the matter, but something that had no impact to the situation will not be included. Which brings me to another main point that we had. The mass media should only be able to give necessary information. If the info does not pertain to the situation or had any particular impact on what happened, you shouldn't have to mention it. For example, if a ship sank in the ocean, would the color of the boat matter? Would it be something that you had to know to understand what happened? To further elaborate on this point, if the captain of the ship was involved in the ship sinking, he should be mentioned. But if the captain did not affect the ship sinking, he shouldn't be mentioned. The other side says that we're stretching the truth. However, I implore you to realize that you would still get the full truth. We're just leaving out details that wouldn't make a difference, such as the color of the boat example. How would the color of the boat affect your understanding of the situation? It just doesn't matter. You are not being lied to, that you would still get all the relevant information needed to understand the situation. And to say it blatantly one more time, we are not saying the mass media should lie, but rather only give you the information that you need to hear.
Let's see, of the people that are here, how many people would side with the, you guys are pro, right? With the pro side over here? Anybody side with the con side? One of the things I wrote down as I was doing this was, I think you guys put up a good fight, and it seemed probably at times like it was you were up against a whole lot, but I think what you needed was like a focusing example, like to really crystallize it for everybody exactly what you're talking about, because you were fighting over the point really hard, but I think it was hard for people to relate because they needed some kind of a focusing idea. Like, for example, 1992, Bill Clinton running for president, and all of the media asking, did you smoke marijuana whenever you were in college? So for them, that's something that should be reported. But I think if you think of like 2017 sensibilities, many people would say like, that's private, like why should you have to say that? And that would be a point they would have to then argue. So yeah, I think that was the one thing you guys were maybe lacking in that one, was just a solid focusing example that everybody could connect with. All right, but good job for all of you guys up here. We'll clear it out and let the next group come in. Thanks, audience.
Yeah. I mean, it was difficult. This is the pro side.
Since when?
The person who sat here on the con side the one time
Let's
was
have a
wrong.
mini debate real fast about which side is which.
Bro!
Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Left people. Left this. Left this over there. You're very confused. And you're like. I know they won. I know they won. I'll probably stutter a lot.
You don't know what right now.
So when they first go, help me get some questions.